What's up, fans and coaches of the All-Star Showdown League? It's Susie, back at it with another ASL video. I'm joined here by Hutch
Hey, what's up,
for our
guys?
first installment of the ASL playoff implications for Season 4. The series started last year with me and Demaster, and we had a lot of success with it. So it's back for a second season.
You and the Master did this? That's news to me.
I believe we did it, right?
No, it was you and me that did it last year as well.
Oh, I was just testing you guys. Okay, well, we're back at it with another playoff implication video. Our first one in a whole season to talk about the playoff landscape as we're going down the stretch run with 2 or 3 weeks left before playoffs begin. And this season is a bloodbath for those final two or three playoff spots. So we're gonna inform you about all the teams that have potential to clinch those. And let's start this.
All right.
So the first team we're gonna go over is none other but coach of the Washington Wailords. Cam has had a rough first season in the ASL, winning only one game, had a very rough differential, and he has been eliminated. But he has 2 weeks to end the year against very quality opponents in both Keister and excellent name, and you can use these to better himself for the future. So I think Cam just go out and try to prove some of us wrong and go get some nice quality wins before the consolation playoffs.
Yeah, basically, what he can try and do is he can potentially get up to like a 12th seed in the consolation playoffs, which is only going to help. It gives him a lesser chance of playing a better team, and I mean, just try something that you've always wanted to try. You're eliminated from the playoffs, so just have fun with it.
All right, so the next team we're going over is one of the biggest surprises of the season. It's Static, the coach of the Intermilotic. Static has had a rough season, winning only 2 games at this point. No one could have predicted Static to have such a rough year, but uh, 2 exciting games to end the year against quality teams in Cody and Marin. And Static, like any week, can win any game if he wants and puts in the prep. So I'm excited to see if he can play spoiler, impact the race, just because his 2 games matter so much for the top 8 or 9ish teams.
Yeah, if you are anywhere around the playoff spot, if you're around the sixth spot, you are rooting for Static because he's playing two 6 and 5 teams right now, and like you said, he can play spoiler and knock these teams potentially out of the playoffs. So, I mean, you can meme if you want to, but there are meanings to the games that you still play because it could mean the difference between someone making and someone missing the playoffs.
All right, so in the 12th spot, we have Shadow, the coach of the PC Barcelona. Shadow has had a rough year in his first year in the ASL, I believe.
Yep. Well, he was in season 2, but he quit like 5 games in.
Yes, Shadow's had a rough year. He again can play spoiler though, as he gets to play Marin, who's 6 and 5, and Keiser is 5 and 6. So Shadow, it may be in your best interest to go 100% and try to impact some of the teams that are still in the race, and get yourself ready for consolation play.
Yeah, these games definitely still do matter, and like I was talking about with Cam, you can better yourself for a seed, like Shadow and Static. If you guys get high enough wins, you could potentially jump over Malone. It's not as likely, but it could happen. But yeah, the games still do matter since you are playing some playoff teams, so you can choose to meme, but I would really prefer that we get some games played because that's really not fair to the people who are also in the hunt.
So finally, we have a coach. But I'm gonna be honest, Malone. The odds of you making it are minuscule. You're gonna
Slim to
need
none.
you're gonna need everything in the world to just suddenly go your way, and it's not very likely that all the things you need to happen are gonna happen. So what you need to happen, Malone, we're gonna go over this slowly. First off, you need to win your next two games, which are against TCP and Ian, both very good coaches, and TCP has already clinched a playoff spot. Next, you need three of these four people to lose: Cody, Susie, TJ, and Marin. All of us are in the playoff thick and are going to be putting 100% prep in. And finally, you need Keister and Ian to only win one remaining game. Right? You can move up from the 11th spot to the 6th spot and play Ian in the first. In no. You can move to the 6th spot, and I think you play the 3 seed, right?
Yes, sixth place theory.
Likely play Brad. So I
Yeah.
don't know, Malone. Let's see if you can get some magic here.
It's gonna take nothing shy of a miracle to get Malone into the playoffs. He just made his run a little too late. If he hadn't lost in week 11 and he was sitting at a 5-6 record, I could make an argument for Malone making the playoffs. But there's too much things that need to happen, and TCP and Ian, those are not cakewalk games. And considering that 3 of the 4 people listed have to lose all of their games, that's a little difficult. And Keister and Ian only have to win one remaining game, which, to be fair, if you beat Ian, then Ian would have only won one remaining game anyways. But yeah, it's gonna be an uphill battle to say the least.
Okay, so the next coach we have is Ian, the coach of the Arcane Arcanines. And Ian, he made the playoffs last year, I believe, and he's having about an average season. I expected a little bit more from Ian, as he is a great coach. Playoff hunt, and his schedule is doable, as he has games against TJ of the Slow Bohemians, who's a very solid coach, also in the playoff hunt, and Malone, who of course needs everything to go right. So Ian, your scenario, because you're 5-6 with a -8 differential, you need to win both your games, game stretch in the Keister, and 3 of the 4 people I list can only win one more game. Myself, Cody, Marin, and TJ. It's not as hard as Malone's, and it's definitely doable, but you're gonna have to resort to watching some battles and hoping everything goes your way.
No, this is 100% doable in my opinion. Just because he's gonna play TJ anyways, so if he beats TJ, because he has to basically win 2 games anyways, if he beats TJ, then great. He already knocks off one of these. So the other, so then he just has to hope for 2 other people to lose at least one of their games. And assuming he gets 2 wins, he maintains a better differential slash record than Keister, he'll make it in. It's more realistic. It's just there's so many 6 and 5 teams. It just makes it very hard if you are behind them to creep into a playoff spot.
So
Hello?
next, in the 9th spot, sorry Hutch.
It's all good.
Next in the 9th spot, we have Keister, the coach of the Phoenix Flygons. Keister, of course, was the champ last year, disappointing season, but he is still still a chance to make the playoffs, and his differential is fairly good. I mean, he's +2 despite having a losing record. So if he can manage to win 7 games, differential will almost definitely be one of the best ones at that record, which would put him in. So the scenario for him is he needs to win both his games. He needs to make sure Ian does not do as well as he does, and it's similar to Ian. He needs 3 of the 4 people to only win one game. Myself, Cody, Marin, and TJ. His schedule is absurdly other schedules, I'd say, as he gets to play the number 12 and number 14 teams. And yeah, it's looking really good for Keister right now. Out of those games, let's say like 4-0s or something, he's going to have a very good differential, and he has a good chance of sneaking in with that 6 seed.
Yeah, his differential helps him immensely. It's much higher than Ian's. The thing is he doesn't get to play one of the 6 and 5 teams, which I know you have a better chance of losing that game. But it's more in control of your destiny because if you beat them, then you have a better chance. It fills out more of the ballot for implications and whatnot. But yeah, he has the easiest remaining schedule if I'm not mistaken. So I definitely see Keister going 7-6, but he doesn't control his own destiny. He has to have a couple other things happen. So all you can really do at this point, Keister, is get two big wins to distance yourself from Ian and hope for the best.
Our next coach is the first coach in my mind that can really do it all himself, and it's Marin. He's 6-5, and he's a differential of zilch. Right now, Marin has very easy schedules. He gets to play both Shadow and Static. And his scenario is if he wins both his games, it's going to be very likely he gets in. And he just needs to have a better 2 game stretch than me, TJ, and Cody. So it's looking very likely for Marin right now just because of his schedule strength. But you never know in the ASL. We've seen crazy things happen before with coaches like Gustavo and such.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if Marin actually doesn't make it. I see him going 8-5. He has like the second easiest remaining schedule, playing the 13th and 12th team. So he just has to have a better two-game stretch. So as long as he's getting big wins, it's very likely that he will have a better two-game stretch since they are easier matches. So I definitely see Marin getting in. It's just his differential. It's definitely not helping him that it's at a 0. He would probably like it closer to like a 4 or something like that. But it's very, very doable. And if he gets 7 wins, it basically goes back to the Keister Ian scenario. But 8 wins is almost a lock in every season in the ASL.
All right, so the next team we have is the coach of the Slow Bohemians, TJ. In his first season in the ASL, TJ's put together a very nice season so far, and he is close to making the playoffs, but has a very tough schedule to end the year as he has to play both Ian and myself. But TJ is he has a differential of +2, which is very solid among the teams that are 6-5 or 5-6. So if TJ can win both his 2 games, then he just has to hope that myself, Marin, and Cody do worse.
Yeah, basically with all these 6-5 teams, it's just the same scenario. Just kind of put in perspective for them. So same thing with Marin. It's just he has a better differential, and it's definitely gonna help because if he does end up beating you, the Utah Hoots, he automatically checks off having a better two-game stretch than you. So then he has to hope that Marin or Cody loses one game, or that he picks up big wins. So I think if TJ wins out, he has a better chance than Marin because he can control more of his destiny, because that would mean he beats you, and then only Marin or Cody would have to lose one more game.
Excuse me. Okay, so the next coach is myself, the coach of the Utah Hoots. And as I predicted going into the season, Mike, the assistant coach, and I, we're going to bring a ship to Utah. It's not looking so bright for us, but if the season ended as of today, you know who would be in playoff spot? That's right, the Utah Hoots. Here we get to the dark side of everything. Despite my elite differential at +4 compared to these other 6-5 teams, my schedule remaining is arguably the hardest just because the 2 teams I play are both in playoff. Both have to win games to make the playoffs, so they're going to be putting in. I get to play one of the worst battlers
That would be
in
me.
draft league
That's me.
against me. That's Hutch. Hutch, when's the last time you beat me in a draft league game?
It's been a while. To be fair, the first 5 games that I
It's
the
been
first
5 draft
five
league
games
games.
that I played against you, I beat you. Like first five.
And
Then
now
you
I've won 5 straight.
then you actually started trying.
So, game. At the very least, if I lose, I'll still be happy because I get to play Hutch. I'm just hoping if he beats me, it's only a 1-0, as I can stay in the playoff hunt then. But I've just got to make sure I keep my differential well, and if I win 2 games, I am all but a lock differential, unless someone behind me just goes insane like Marin and just wins both and gets like 4-0s or 5-0s or something.
Yeah, the week 13 match between you and TJ is going to matter a lot. Just because you guys are going to be right at about the same differential, so it's going to be very important. And like I said with TJ, you can knock off a potential implication. Like you need um, two of the 3 coaches to have a better two-game stretch then. So if you can already knock out TJ, that's one that you can already eliminate. But you don't have the most difficult schedule. You'll see the most difficult schedule in a bit. But your schedule is hard. You're playing above 500 teams. If you win 2 games, you're basically in. As long as you maintain better differentials.
Oh, whoops! I didn't realize how hard Brad and your schedules were,
Yeah,
Hutch.
yeah.
The next team um, is Cody, the coach of the London Lapras, and as odd as this may be, 5. Although he did take over the team, I believe he played 1 week in the ASL. I think between me and
Two.
Hutch, we think Cody is a lock for the playoffs, right?
I would think so because of his differential, yes.
He inherited a pretty good differential from TG. He only strengthened that with a 6-0 victory last week over Cam Waylord. And now, Iku's 2-9. He gets to play Hutch. Hutch is going to put in some A+ prep, so that should be a great game.
Not if I beat you.
But Cody is a phenomenal coach. I would say he is probably a top coach skill wise in the ASL. Would you say?
Yeah, he's up there.
He's new to the ASL. We found him from the WWDL trash league, but Cody's a great coach, and I'm excited to see him make the playoffs if he can keep his differential solid.
Susie trash talking a league that he's actually in. Crazy. So
And I honestly think if he makes the playoffs, he has the greatest chance of any of the lower seeds to knock off the big dogs.
yeah, so if Cody wins both of his 2 games, I honestly see him at a 4th spot because that would mean that he beat me and he would likely grab a higher differential if I wanted to guess. But it goes back to the same thing. He plays Static, which is a relatively low team. So I can definitely see him pulling out 7 wins, and he can do it with 7 wins. It depends on how everything else shapes up. But if he goes 8-5, he has to be a lock for the playoffs as long as they aren't both like 1-0s.
All right, so the next team is going to be Hutch underscore 03 underscore 22 himself. And I'll hit him with a subscription, dude. He needs those likes and that subs. You know, he's got to get that ad revenue, dude. It's his job, full-time job.
Don't put ads on my video, bro.
He'll put them on once he gets big. You guys gotta help him get big first if you want those ads.
Why do people want ads? I'm so confused.
Okay, so the coach we're talking about is Hutch, and Hutch is in a very good position because of his 7-4 record, which is superior to all the teams below him, and his elite
Obviously.
differential. So in a bad situation, as he has to play the greatest coaches in the ASL, in both Cody and myself.
All right.
And by
So
greatest coaches, I mean I'm pretty bad and Cody's good.
okay. So I guarantee a clinch with 2 wins. Usually 8 is a clinch. So there's scenarios for me even losing both games. So I can clinch with 2 wins. I can clinch with 1 win if 2 of the 4, 6 and 5 teams end up with a worse record or differential than me. And then I can clinch if 2 of the 4 that in the brackets listed lose 2 of their remaining games, because Susie's trash. He's gonna lose both of his games anyways.
Not on a
So
3-game winning streak or anything.
exactly. So if 2 of those 4 teams lose both of their remaining games, it really doesn't matter how I finish. I'm still in the playoffs anyways. So I'm trying to beat you, Susie, so I don't have to try hard against Cody because Cody will probably destroy me. So
Cody is very good, okay? For anyone who's watching doesn't know who he is one of the greatest like new coaches we've gotten to the ASL in quite some time.
all right, go ahead and talk about the next.
Next coach that we are going to be going over is Brad Anderson, coach of the St. Louis Samurott, and Brad is having a great season now that he has drafted a legitimate team again. Last year was a bit of an experiment, and he still managed to have an interesting season. I believe he missed out on playoffs. a lot of ups and a lot of downs. Team this year, Brad is showing how dominant he is in the draft league format. And it's going to be interesting to see how he closes out this season as he has to battle both EN, who's undefeated, whose tier A is arguably the best in the league. And those matches are very important for Brad as since he's already locked, he can use these matches to almost experiment ahead for playoffs. And I believe it's very unlikely he can get um, the bye week just because TCP leads him in differential by 3 and has a relatively easy matchup versus Malone. So if TCP is able to win that game, then Brad's gonna have to have some really dominant showings. Differential. So Brad can use these 2 weeks to really get ready for the playoffs and hope to win his first championship. I want to say.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So, yeah, you want to talk about a hard schedule? We got Anderson here playing the number 1 and the number 2 seed. So, he's already clinched the playoffs, so he's okay there. And he can clinch by winning 2 remaining games because he would have played TCP in there, so he'd finish at 10-3, and TCP would finish at 9-4. But if he only wins one more, um, TCP can only win one more, and Anderson still has to have a better differential. So, as long as Anderson doesn't lose huge to EN, and as long as TCP doesn't annihilate Malone, then Anderson might want to play for the first round bye because let's say Anderson's at 8-4 and TCP's at 9-3, but Anderson can bridge the differential if he beats TCP because he plays TCP in the last week, and he can leapfrog him into the second seed, which is why that week 13 matchup is going to be important. And especially if TCP loses to Malone, then it's going to be very important to see if Anderson wants to play for the first round bye or if he's just content with the third place. And like you said, he might not want to show off all his tricks just because he's got the playoffs coming up. He's already in it. These are teams that he will likely play. He'll be in a bracket with TCP, and he would potentially play EN in the championship, I believe. So interesting stuff there, but you can choose to save all your stuff for the playoffs, or if you really want to, you have a decent shot at making a bye.
Also, quick note: Brad has been known to not reveal interesting sets ahead of playoff time for teams he may meet in the playoffs. Just so those know. So, decision to see if he really brings his top prep versus TCP or tries to bring something unusual in case of a playoff meeting. The next team we're going to be going over is another team who has clinched. It is TCP. And right now, all TCP has to do is try to hang on to that first round bye. And currently, he is in a very good spot as he has a differential of +3 to Brad. But as you were saying, that week 13 game is going to matter a lot. Yeah, just have a nice week versus Malone, and I'll see how you do versus Brad in week 13.
Yeah, so basically TCP is also already clinched. 8 is the magic number right now since their differentials are so high. They haven't clinched because of their record. Their record helps, but their differentials are so high. That's why I can't guarantee a clinch if I win one game. But anyways, if TCP smokes Malone, basically all he has to do against Anderson is play damage control and basically build a team just like Choice Scarf Explosion, everything. So you don't lose by a huge differential. Because if TCP 6-0s Malone and let's say Anderson loses 1-0, then Anderson sits at a +26 and TCP sits at a +36. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but then as long as TCP loses 4-0 or better, he will clinch. If he loses 5-0, he'll lose in a head-to-head tiebreaker against Anderson. So it's just a scenario. It'll all depend on what the differential gap and if Anderson beats EN or if TCP loses to Malone. But for now, that's what it's looking like. So we'll have playoff implications in Week 12 to get back to you on how those matches happened.
So finally, we have to go to the cream of the crop. the top dog, the coach of the St. George Dragonites, none other than excellent name. Ian is having an immaculate season so far, and towards the end with 2 games left, I think it's on everybody's mind to see if he can go 13-0 in the regular season, potentially finish the entire season the championship. It's obviously possible and so far in his solid draft, but you have to keep in account that he has not played the top. That he has not played. Um, who's the team I have to go over? That he has. This is messed up, isn't it?
No,
My
he
bad.
still needs to play
He has to play
Anderson.
Brad. Yeah, my bad. I thought it said he had to play TCP too, but that's just Brad. So he still has to play Brad, who is arguably the best coach in the ASL, and that'll be a great match to see. It'll be a playoff preview. I predict they will meet. And then week 13, I'm expecting to be a bit of a meme off as Ian and Cam, I think, are going to have some fun with that one. So I'm excited to see if Ian can go 13-0. Yeah, just end the season well, dude.
Yeah, Ian has two options here. He can chase the best record in the ASL. Like currently, it's 11-1-1. So he can chase the 13-0. He can also get 12 wins and have the best record in the ASL. He can go for the undefeated, but I think he just goes for the 12-1. I don't really think he should try a whole ton against Anderson. I mean, you don't want to show off your tricks. I know it would the way it's shaping up right now, it would be until the championship until Anderson played him because it would be yeah, because it would be he'd be in a bracket with the fourth and fifth team, and then TCP would be in a bracket with the third and sixth team. So he wouldn't play Anderson until the championship. So if he wants to conserve some prep, he can do that. Or if he just wants to say screw it and go for the 13-0, I definitely think it's doable.
So our last slide we have for you guys is an overview of the league. It's the standings page that is on the ASL document. You guys should go hit that document up. It's pretty crisp. It's made by a member in our ASL. I don't know who made it. The management member or something. I don't know. But Hutch made it. Okay, Hutch made it. So, so yeah. Here's the overview, and as you can see, playoff hunt are really streaking right now, and it's gonna be a fun last 2 weeks as we get ready for the playoff push, and that'll do it on the haters. Cut that, please.